When you hear that Australia was startled by warships from China, this wasn't a simple naval visit. It was a strategic signal, a power projection exercise, and a test of regional reactions. According to multiple sources, in early 2025, the Chinese Navy, the People's Liberation Army Navy Plan, sent a task group comprising a Zhangkai-class frigate, a Ren high-class cruiser, and a Fuch high-class replenishment ship on a voyage that circumnavigated Australia, transited the Tasman Sea, and performed live fire-style drills inside Australia's exclusive economic zone EEZ. The why behind such a move reveals layers of geopolitics. This isn't simply about showing up. Let's unpack the layers. 1. Geography and jurisdiction. The Tasman Sea between Australia and New Zealand, or the waters off Australia's east coast, loomed large. In February 2025, the Chinese task group entered waters near Australia, at distances about 150 nautical miles east of Sydney, which is unusual but technically lawful so long as in international waters or making continuous transit. They even conducted what appeared to be live fire drills in or near Australia's EEZ, though not within the 12 nautical mile territorial sea. The twist: regular naval presence isn't necessarily unusual globally, but this level of task group deployment so far from China's home waters, so close to Australia, triggered alarms. 2. Message and deterrence. Why send a cruiser, frigate, and supply ship down under? Because one of the vessels, the Ren high-class cruiser Zunyi, is among China's most potent surface warships, with upwards of 100+ vertical launch missile cells capable of long-range strike. Its deployment makes the signal unmistakable. This is not routine. The goal: test Australia's naval vigilance, test reaction times, test the political will of allies, and reinforce to regional states that China's Navy is increasingly global in reach. One analysis states the deployment was clearly meant to send a message. 3. Timing and strategic backdrop. The deployment occurred amid heightened tensions. Australia is deepening its ties with the U.S., is part of the AUKUS-packed nuclear-powered submarines, advanced tech, etc., and China is sensitive to what it sees as containment or strategic encirclement. So the Chinese warships near Australia weren't just about, "we train here." They were about signaling that China can lift the operational radius of its navy well beyond the South China Sea, and that in a region where Australia has felt safe for decades, the assumptions are shifting. 4. The drills and flight disruption. Here's a scene straight out of thriller territory. Commercial flights between Australia and New Zealand were diverted in February after the Chinese vessels warned of live fire drills underway in the Tasman Sea. This is significant. Normal navies do drills, but the fact that they didn't give the usual 12-24 hours notice that Australia expects blew up political scrutiny. The Chinese side maintains they gave adequate notice and were fully compliant with international law, whereas Australia argues the short notice and proximity made it militarily provocative. 5. Implications for Australia's defense readiness and strategy. This episode laid bare how exposed Australia is in its vast maritime approaches. One analysis said the worst move would be to overreact and hand China a propaganda win, meaning there's a delicate balancing act. Australia must invest in ships, subs, surveillance, and allied coordination rather than just hype a crisis. The fact that the Chinese ships made such a voyage and Australia's Navy shadowed them without incident means the scenario is serious, not sensationalized. 6. Legal framing and narrative power. China insists everything was normal. As a major power in this region, it's normal for China to send their vessels to different parts of the region to conduct various kinds of activities. Meanwhile, Australia and New Zealand argue that while technically lawful, the scale and location are unusual and warrant diplomatic explanation. The legal technical status matters. Entry into EZ doesn't automatically mean violation of sovereignty, but the politics, optics, and strategic counseling matter hugely. 7. Regional ripple effects and the Pacific stage. Beyond Australia, smaller Pacific Island states are watching closely. China's broader strategy isn't just warships. Debt, trap diplomacy, strategic access, bilateral security deals with island nations, and influence operations all tie into the naval deployments. The warships near Australia are part of a much bigger narrative. China projecting power far beyond its immediate borders. For Australia, this means the traditional comfortable status of a geographically distant continent with low threat is changing. 8. Communications, shadowing, and intelligence play. Australia's defense minister admitted that their forces totally shadowed the task group when it was near Australia. Shadowing is normal today, but the novelty lies in how far the Chinese flotilla came. One question analysts raise: how well did Australia detect, track, intercept, and respond? The voyage offers China not just training, but gathering of acoustic signatures, radar emissions, readiness rehearsals. It's a real world training ground. 9. The optics challenge and propaganda dimension. From Beijing's perspective, this announcement wasn't just in the public domain. It was meant to send a message to Australia, to the U.S., and to regional states. One think tank says, China wins from Australian overreaction. The deployment was clearly aimed at sending a message and testing Australia's responses, not only on the military front, but socially and politically. That means how the Australian public and media interpret this matters. Is it imminently a war threat? Or is it a strategic probe? Reaction shapes narrative. 10. What this means moving forward. For a YouTube channel like yours, covering this kind of content under copyright scrutiny, you want to emphasize analysis, commentary, transformation. Use the show's segment as inspiration, but don't replicate it. You highlight and expand on the facts, add visuals with rights, add context, and tie it to broader themes such as sea power in 21st century, Australia's maritime vulnerability, China's naval globalization. For the audience, this incident is a flashpoint in a longer-term shift from Australia, safe in its hemisphere, to Australia, part of an active Indo-Pacific maritime competition. And to drive home how mind-blowing the story is, imagine a warship armed with anti-ship ballistic missiles and long-range strike capability, leaving Chinese home waters, entering the deep South Pacific, circling Australia, and conducting exercises. This isn't a Cold War relic. It's 2025. The logistics, command, replenishment, intel chain, cyber and sensor networks, satellite coverage all had to align. That China chose to send such a group and deliberately let it be visible is bold. Australia's maritime approaches span tens of thousands of kilometers. The exposure is real. If you were scripting for YouTube, here are visuals you'd want. Satellite tracks of the Chinese task group, Australia's maritime survey chart, naval radar playback, commercial flight diversions. All drive home the scale and significance. Finally, remember the narrative arc. The warships aren't just hardware, they are words made of steel, statements made of missiles. They draw a line: we can come here, we can train here, we are operationally capable into your backyard. And Australia's choice is, How to respond diplomatically, militarily, strategically without amplifying the very message China might want, that it bent the region. That's the game behind the scenes. So yes, when you title it Preparing for War, you're teeing up the specter of direct conflict. But what this story mostly underscores is power projection, strategic outreach, testing of thresholds, and the shattering of comfort zones. For your channel War Ease exploring epic battles and power plays, this incident is battle. Space 2.0. Wars may not begin with boots on the beach. They begin with warships slipping quietly into seas once considered safe.